Your main man returns with a review of a role-playing game product. Now, for any of you independent game publishers out there that contact me, and I've had a number of them contact me since the time I've been doing the channel, asking me to do reviews. If you want me to review your product, you have to send a hard copy of the book, of the product. I do not review PDFs. I don't want to be bothered to read them on the screen. Now, that out of the way, what we're going to be reviewing today is Path of the Oracle role-playing game by Dale, the Glorious Adventurer. The path awaits. In these pages, you will find everything you need to create an adventure of epic proportions. Included are the Player's Handbook, the Oracle Guide, and the Monster Compendium. What are you waiting for? It's been your main man, Andrew Wood, for Game Geeks, and that concludes our review. Now, we're not going to Kurt Weagle this. We're going to go in and dig into it, explain the game to you, so you can really have an understanding of what you're getting here. Now, first and foremost, I appreciate Dale, the Glorious Adventurer's efforts at putting together and contributing to the whole sum total body of work that is role-playing games. Anyone that takes the time to put together a book, I certainly appreciate that. Being in the process of doing that, I understand what sort of a labor it can be. Now, first and foremost, let's address who is going to enjoy this game. Well, this isn't what I would call an immersive style of role-playing game. I would firmly put this game into the casual beer and chips style and that category. So what it seemed to me is more of an amalgam of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons meets basic box set Dungeons & Dragons. Now, there's a great number of different rule changes here, but it had a large number of elements that seemed to clearly be influenced from those. When the author originally approached me to do this, and when I read the book, it was something completely different than I thought it was going to be. This is, as he told me, this is going to be a book about ancient Greece role-playing. So I'm thinking politics and all sorts of stuff. What this is, it's not ancient Greece. It is a fantasy. It's D&D sort of shoehorned into an ancient Greece-ish setting. In this book, you can play all sorts of monsters, and that just doesn't jive with Greek mythology. Now, let's just start going through the book and explaining some things, just to kind of give you an example of what we have here. Now, like I said, this is a casual style of game, and let me give you read the example of role-playing that's provided in the book. Oracle, you arrive in the small port of Metrophenes. The streets are busy with many people. It is harvest time, and people are bringing their goods and readying them to ship to the outer islands. Player 1, I walk off the boat and put my posters for myself to advertise my work as a bodyguard. Oracle, Player 2, it's your turn. Player 2, I go in search of a merchant shop to sell the goods I took from the bodies of those cyclopses we killed earlier. Merchant, played by the Oracle. Hello, adventurer. What brings you to my shop today? Player 2, in character. I would like to sell this bunch of swords I picked up in my last adventure. Merchant, very well. These seem to be in good condition. I will give you 20 coins apiece. Now, the game is sort of purported by the author as a framework. It's small. It costs you $15. It has everything you need in there for the game, sort of. It doesn't have any magic items listed in the book. It doesn't have, but it does mention, you could put those in. It doesn't have the amount of monsters that are in the book is extremely small, and it doesn't give you any sort of information on how to role play the different sorts of races, the different sort of monsters that you can portray. There's almost none. There's just a tiny bit of information. If you just pick this book up and you never played a role-playing game before, you'd be a little bit lost. It doesn't explain away very much on how to. There's some explanations. There's a bit, but again, the pages are very small, and there are, including the appendix, 107 pages in the book. And where do we start here? Start on page 1. So 107 pages, very small pages, as you can see in the book. There's no artwork in the book either, which is going to be obviously a detracting factor or turn off to some people. There's only this picture here on the front. And now, I've said all that. So the game would seem to run fairly easy. It's definitely not rules light. You're not going to kind of get up and go quickly like a Savage World style of game. It's more like, probably more like mechanically like 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. It definitely requires a grid to play this game. There's numerous references back to the grid. Now, I've gone into my thoughts on the grid before, so those are for other videos for those of you who have not seen that before. But the game offers some interesting aspects to it. It has a group of Greek gods and goddesses in there. I did think it was a bit odd in some of the selections. I think you picked 9. Now, of course, in Greek mythology, there's a plethora of divinities, both god and otherwise, that could be selected and chose for the characters. The characters have both sort of gifts. He calls them gifts. I guess there's like feats that you could buy for them, and then they have that in a general sense. You get a group based off your species, your race, and you get a group of them based off of your god, and you sort of progress experience-wise with your divinity as well. You could even acquire a second god at a certain point. However, you cannot acquire a third one. Obviously, I guess your character worship as many individuals they want, but this is just in terms of having that special connection, which I thought was one of the strong points of the game. Those who watch my channel know that I do enjoy anything that has to do with the divinities. Again, the book was small, so you can't put that much in here. He does have a website, which I'll go ahead and plug right now. It's going to be www.pathoftheoracle.com, and I'll put a link in for that. You can buy the book there. You can also buy the book on Amazon.com. The game basically is designed to have the little combat board and to fight things, to loot the bodies, to get the treasure, to sell the treasure, and have a little bit of adventure in there. I wouldn't say that this is written to be totally a hack and slash game, but from looking at the gifts, the vast majority of them really focus around combat as being a very central and important aspect in the game. Even some of the divinities that seemed a little more questionable. Not that all of the gifts are. There's clearly some room to be using them otherwise. Now let's talk about how you do characters. For making a character, they have 5 stats: strength, speed, intelligence, mind, precision, and it appears you just roll straight down the line. You roll 2d6 right down the line. Did a video about that too, so my feelings and ideas are well documented. There seems to have been, what seems it might be a design flaw. I don't know if you're listening, Dale, which I know you are, you could probably answer this one for me. You roll a 2d6, which means you could have a 2 on the number, and then you modify it by your racial stats. Now, some races have up to a -4 penalty, which means you could be sitting there with like a -2 intelligence, which there's no gauge. It doesn't measure out or explain what each number means in the stats, which I think is definitely something worth putting in. Obviously, a -2 is not good, but is a -2 possible? Do you have to have a 1? In my mind, a 0 intelligence equals you don't have any intelligence. You're like, but maybe it's not. Maybe a 0 intelligence is just like a 90 IQ or a 70 IQ or a 60 IQ or something. Maybe a -2 intelligence, probably isn't very high, but that was the biggest question I had, not really understanding, because you could have a -2 intelligence there. You could have a -1 strength on some of these species. But let's go through those and take a look at what we have here. These are all pretty traditional to a Greek setting that you might understand. Of course, you have your humans. I don't know if this is intentional. It's obviously balance can be a very difficult thing. From looking at them, there seem to be certain balance issues between some of the races. Some of them definitely seemed a little bit better than others. There are centaurs, which I think of all the monsters you could have in a Greek setting are the most appropriate for a player character. Those make the most sense, and they factor into a great number of Greek myths for anyone out there who's actually read this stuff. Yes, Cyclopses, which struck me a little odd, is Cyclopses in Greek mythology are for the most part very, very large. They're too large for player characters in my mind, but they're listed as the same size as humans. They are size 1. However, there's an allusion somewhere else. Yes, Cyclopses are giant-sized, bald humans, which I don't understand why they would also be size 1, which is the same size as a human, while, in fact, a Minotaur is... Well, Minotaurs are also size 1, but there's something that's larger. Maybe... Yeah, centaurs are size 2, and in my mind, a Cyclops in Greek mythology is vastly larger than a centaur, even despite the horse aspect, which obviously adds weight and mass to the creature. But anyway, you have centaurs, Cyclopses, harpies, and he notes that harpies are always female characters, which makes sense with Greek mythology. He has minotaurs, which he makes a note as to how, you know, they're apparently related to the old Minotaur in there. He has satyrs, which struck me as a little odd. Now, I don't have a problem with satyrs being male and female. That's been done in games before. That's been done in places. But in Greek mythology, as far as I know, satyrs were 100% always male. They're the male equivalent of nymphs. And in here, you essentially, in fact, even it mentions one place where a satyr could be, let's see. Well, I'm not going to look for it, but it does mention in some places a satyr could be female, which particularly with having harpies as females and witches as females, I thought it was a little odd that satyrs were just male. He has also witches in here as a race, which struck me a little odd, particularly as he says witches are beings with magical power who look like human females. It seems like they would be human females. I know there might be some slight, well, you could say this or that, but outside of being a nymph or something like that, I mean, I think mostly the witches were witches. He calls the game master the Oracle in the game. You have Aphrodite, Apollo, Ares, Athena, Hades, Hermes, Poseidon, and Zeus as the deities that you could choose from. Of course, he encourages you to make up additional information, even the fact saying you could send it into the website and they'll look it over, make sure, I guess, it's balanced out towards some degree. And again, this game doesn't seem to be a heavy balancer. Not that it's like Palladium, Fantasy, or Rift, just completely broken. No. It's not bad. You know, you're going to be okay with this, I think. I'm sure, you know, with anything, if you have a real power gamer sit down and crunch it out, they can come up with little exploitations here and there. But the individuals want to want this game, definitely, you're not getting 100% finished idea, finished product here. He listed off in the book itself as a framework. You're not getting everything. You're still going to have to make things. For example, in the weapons section, there's a short sword, battle axe, short bow, longbow, spear, javelin, arrows, and a net. Those are all the weapons that are listed. It is a Greek game. There is no club, but there is no dagger, there's no trident. I thought those were particularly culturally relevant weapons that I would have certainly put in here. The game uses D6s only. It doesn't use any other dice, which in one way is good because anyone that isn't even a gamer is going to have D6s in their Monopoly or Risk set, whatever. The majority of people are going to have D6s. Now, in this game, for the weapons, some of them are like a D6 or 2d6 damage, a D6 minus 2. I thought that limiting it to D6s, particularly on damage rolls, that's one of the large reasons that Dungeons & Dragons uses D6s, or uses multiple dice for damage, because it gives you a larger amount that you can do. You can make it more realistic that way. I'm not a fan of using strictly D6s. I think it takes some of the flavor and interest out of a role-playing game. I like the odd-sided dice, the 20-siders, the 8-siders, the 12-siders, even the unloved 12-sider, even the 14-sider. Yes, my friend Anas has one. You have a few bits of armor. I kind of like the way he did armor. I think he did a good job with armor and with defense. I'm not going to explain it, because you're going to buy the book for that, but there are some opposed roles with armor, well, not with armor, but with defense and armor. I think he handled it a lot better than armor class, which, you know, is one of the sort of tragic failings of Dungeons and Dragons. The game, and it has a very, very limited amount of other items, one of them being a healing potion. I'm not sure why healing potions on a list with rope, torch, fishing poles, and fire starter. There are 5 items there. Other than that, like I said, it's really not a lot. I guess his goal is to give you enough information where you can say, okay, I see how he did this, or I see how he did that, so I'm gonna have to build in. I don't think for someone, first of all, there's not enough role-playing information, enough running a game information in the book for someone's first time, but having to create a large amount of additional things is something that's going to turn a lot of new players off, because that's, like, you have to learn all this, then you have to figure out how to take it and run with it and use it in other areas, which can be kind of problematic. He does mention one thing that I definitely agree with, the fact of just a slew and multitude of books, like particularly you see in Dungeons and Dragons, can really overwhelm people, can turn people off, can be just a big problem. Just so many, and it, of course, I don't think he really mentions that, but the power creep always comes up and up. And here's some pictures in the book about how the dice are used, or how the how the dice are used, like as tokens, and like drawing out like a little map, or maybe yeah, it's just like little magic aquarium stones there. I guess that's to show where your characters are. It definitely relies on having a grid. You could run this with gridless a little easier than you could 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, but a large amount of what the book is and the writing in the book specifically goes around grid. If you don't want to run with a grid, the game probably wouldn't be the best for you. It has a snake eye mechanic that's kind of interesting, to basically substitute for the critical hit, because you roll 3d6 to hit. And I'm not going to go into that more because it's kind of some neat stuff here. And again, you're going to have to buy the book to get that information. But it gives you different gifts. As you advance, you can get more gifts. You can use them more. You can get divine gifts. You can get. Let's see if I can find some. Of course, they say list out. If you have any questions, you can go to an FAQ on our website, and each of the divinities has their own gifts. Some of them are pretty interesting. A lot of them are, again, very heavily focused towards combat. I think for people that are interested in playing some of these races, as long as you have an idea of what you want to do with it, how you want to portray a Minotaur or Cyclops, if you're coming in and be like, well, Minotaur, I don't really know what I would do with that, you're not going to really find the answer here. But if you have an idea, so I would think you would need at least a medium level of role-playing game experience to get into this. I think you would have to have at least a medium like of hack and slash. You would have, not that the game is a hack and slash game, but it's closer on that vector. It's not a deep immersion game where you're going to sit around and politic and play out a one scene role-playing side for 8 hours. It's a game that's meant to have some combat, meant to have some loot, meant to have some treasure. Very much, like I said, an amalgam between 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons and the basic box set. The characters could provide a lot of fun and interest. The game has a different mechanic set, so it's going to bring a slightly different feel. But I think overall your feel is going to be hex grid style. It's going to be a bit of a dungeon crawl, a bit of a wilderness adventure. It's going to be a bit of probably on the high seas, sailing around to the different islands, exploring mysteries and legends, going after these wanted monsters and so forth. And I think in its best way, you'd probably want to run this game with a lot of action. You'd probably want to run the game with a very heroic feel to it, and I think that's where the game would excel to its greatest level. But again, thank you to Dale, the Glorious Adventurer, for sending this to me. The writing style of the book, although I did find a few typos, the editing was very strong. In fact, I could point out numerous games like Rifts that are nowhere near as tightly edited as this, and I think it was just him and one additional person that put this together. So, for that being said, the editing is pretty strong. The tone of the writing is more lighthearted. There's some references to different things in there. I've kind of written some of them down. For example, there's I think a gift called Leroy Jenkins, which if you know what that means, that right there, combined with the name Dale the Glorious Adventurer, is going to kind of give you an idea of the tone that this is going to have. It's definitely not a dark game. It's more light, fluffy, sort of fun, casual style of game where you sit there and drink some beers, have some potato chips, and roll the dice. And I think if that's the type of game you're looking for, I think you're going to be more attracted to this, more interested in this product. And if you have any more questions about it, in fact, I'll put his YouTube thing on there, and you guys can just write him directly, or you can write me and in the columns on the comments below.